To mark the print release of our book Reset Your Home in the US and Canada this week, we have been thrilled to welcome phenomenal voices from around the world for Ingrid and Lesley Go Global Week. Today, be prepared to be inspired by a chat with a remarkable author, speaker, and podcaster whose life's work has focused on happiness and the power of habits. Back in 2010, both mine and Leslie's lives and work were impacted by a groundbreaking book, a #1 New York Times bestseller that resonated with millions and millions of people worldwide. So we are deeply honored to introduce the one and only Gretchen Rubin.
You're listening to the Declutter Hub podcast, bringing you tried and tested, no-nonsense tips and advice from the leading experts in decluttering and organising your home. Now here are your hosts, Ingrid Jansen and Lesley Spellman.
Hello and welcome, listeners. I'm Ingrid.
And I'm Lesley.
If you're new to the Declutter Hub podcast, you're so welcome. What you'll find is that we try and find a fun factor in the serious business of decluttering. And if you've been here for a while, you know exactly what we mean. So thank you so much for listening.
If you'd like to get involved in conversations relating to this podcast, it all takes place in our Facebook group. So come and join our lovely, warm, supportive community. To find the Facebook group, go to declutterhub.com/group to find out more. Or you can search for the Declutter Hub community on Facebook.
Well, I'm so happy to be talking to you. Thank you. And congratulations so much. Your book is going global. I love it. We all need more order in our lives. It's fantastic.
We do. So we're so excited that you're here. So thank you so much, Gretchen, because I think for us, and Ingrid is properly fangirling, to be fair. She's like, this is on my bucket list to talk to Gretchen. And I think the reason is where Ingrid and I both started our professional organising businesses back in 2010. And your book had just come out like 2009, I think, something like that. And so it was a book that was spoken about a lot in the professional organising world because of your focus as part of your happiness project, which we will, of course, talk about in a moment, very much on the decluttering and the fact that you can become happy if life and your home around you is orderly. And so you really, sort of paved the way for people like us in the professional organising industry, because we're a little bit further behind than the US professional organising business. And so people started picking up the phone because of your book. And so we spoke about you. So you're there. And you know what? I have to say this. Anybody who knows me knows that I declutter everything, including books. But your book is still here. It did not make the bin bag. I think that's
wow. I feel like I made the cut with a professional organizer. 15 years later, it's still on the shelf. I feel like that's a major accolade. Thank you. I'm so happy to hear it, because I do think that it is true that I think now people very clearly understand the connection between our surroundings and ourselves and our emotions, our focus, our energy. But I think that maybe 15, 20 years ago, people didn't really explicitly make that connection. They might have unconsciously felt it, sure. But I think now people are really aware that it's something that is kind of a priority.
Exactly. So just jumping back to the Happiness Project, can you give us a little bit of context for people who might not know who you are, what you did, how you did it, how you came to write the fantastic Happiness Project book?
Yeah, well, it was a while back. And at that time, I had just finished writing a book called 40 Ways to Look at JFK, which was the short, unconventional biography of Kennedy. And I was sort of in the period of writing, and you two know this period too, where the book is kind of done, but it hasn't hit the shelves yet. And you have sort of this down period. So I had a little bit of more open space in my mind. And I was stuck on a crowded city bus on a day when it was pouring rain. So we were inching along. And I had one of those rare moments for reflection that we often don't get in the busyness of everyday life. And I looked out the window and I thought, what do I want from life anyway? And I thought, I want to be happy. And I realized Yeah, maybe I say that, but I never think about, am I happy? Could I be happier? Can you even make yourself happier? If you can, what would you do? And I thought, gosh, I should have a happiness project and really figure this out. And that was the words, those were the words that came to me, happiness project. And so I did what I always do, which is I ran out to the library the next day and I got a gigantic stack of books, philosophy, science, pop culture, memoirs, novels, anything I could get my hands on, and tried to just understand. And it was just a project for myself. It was just like I had realized that this is something that I wanted to do. But I quickly realized that what I was learning was so fascinating. It was so limitless. There were so many things that I wanted to explore, so many things I wanted to try in my own life. I was just like, oh my gosh, like how can I even keep track of this? And then finally it hit me. I was like, maybe this could be my next book. And like, people have said to me, like, nice work if you can get it. Like, happiness is like your business, it's like your work day. And I'm like, I know, it's great. Um, and so that's what it really was, for me with all my books, sort of research is me search. I'm always trying to understand myself or push my understanding by examining through the lens of my own experience and what I've tried and what I learned from that. And yeah, so like, and I say in the Happiness Project, like I have 12 themes. There's a theme for every month and like a handful of things that I decide to try to work on to see if I can make myself happier. And spoiler alert, most of them worked, but not all of them. Um, but I say like for you, it could be different. Like for some people, travel is hugely important. They might have a whole month that's about travel or a whole month that's about music or, different things where, so we each have to do our own happiness project. But I think a lot of people did kind of identify and then also were sort of felt very hopeful with the idea that like, hey, I can just think about what's missing, think about what I want more of, and like come up with a few practical things to try and see if it works. And for a lot of us, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit. There's a lot of things where we're like, oh yeah, I don't need to do a lot of self-examination to understand where I should start. The question is just like, okay, now's the time. Let me start working on this.
And I was kind of thinking, how did you decide to make it like a year-long project? Was it because you thought it's going to take me a year to write this book, or did you think it has a nice beginning and end then, or what was the
Yeah,
reason?
it kind of all those things. I feel like a year is kind of a natural, it represents to us like a significant time. And January 1st is really good for something like this because sort of the whole world is having that new year, new you moment. So there's kind of a lot of cultural momentum around it. A year felt long enough that I could make meaningful change, but not so long that it just felt like so endless that it felt kind of ungovernable. And I do think for the reader, it's a very kind of satisfying, you go through the seasons, you have that feeling of coming around again. I like 12 because actually 12 ended up being a lot. It was like a lot. I have this thing as a writer, maybe you have this issue too. I feel like everything has to be in the first three chapters. And I'm like, you can't put everything in the first three chapters. Something has to come at the end. Something has to be like three-quarters of the way through. So 12 but 12 again, there's kind of a magic. 12 is a powerful number, and again, it just fits with our way of thinking about our lives. So it just felt right. And short enough to be manageable, but long enough that I could look back at the end of the year and it would feel reasonable that I could have had like to expect to have seen actual change.
And now, because I mean that's quite a while ago now, isn't it? So
Yeah, it is.
do you think that was the beginning? So you did a year, obviously
Yes.
learned a lot. So
Yeah.
do you look back on it and think that was very pivotal, or do you think that you've progressed so much more since?
Well, it was extraordinarily pivotal. And I will say in that book, a lot of the things that I did was like establish like a framework for understanding happiness and how to have a happier life, which has really been a foundation. And it's interesting. I feel really lucky as a writer because my next book always naturally comes out of my last book. Like I've never said like, what book should I write next? I'm always like, oh my gosh, by the time this book is, I'm so excited to start the next book because it's led me in a certain direction. So I wrote The Happiness Project. But one of the things I often ask myself is, what is truly universal? Because one thing I found, and I'm sure you've seen this in your practice, like no tool fits every hand. People are really different. If somebody says this is the right way, this is the best way, be skeptical because it might be great for some people, but it may not be great for you. So I'm like, but are there some things that are truly universal? And I wouldn't say it's 100% universal, but one of the deeply, almost ubiquitous things is that home matters. It's hard to be happy if you're not happy at home. And so that led me to my book, Happier at Home. And then as I was writing these books, people kept saying to me, well, you say you did this, you did that, but how did you get yourself to do it? And I would be like, well, I thought, well, this is probably going to make me happier. Let me try it. And so I'll do it. And then if it does, and then if it works, then I'll just keep doing it. And they're like, but how did you get yourself to do it? It's like, I don't understand what you're saying. What's going on? Something you're experiencing, something that I am not experiencing. And what you're experiencing is difficulty in forming a habit. So that led me to my book Better Than Before, which is the 21 Strategies of Habit Change, because a lot of times we know perfectly well what we want to do. It's just a problem of maintaining a habit. That led me to my book, The Four Tendencies, which is a personality framework, which explains a lot of the big differences that you see in how people successfully form habits. I also wrote Outer Order, Inner Calm along the way because one of the things I noticed, I'm sure you two have seen this. For most people, again, not for everybody, but for most people, outer order contributes to inner calm more than it should, kind of disproportionately. People are like, a friend of mine said, I finally cleaned my fridge and now I know I can switch careers. And I'm like, I get it, you know? Or like people just like say, and here's like this weird paradox where people, because my sister calls me a happiness bully because I'm always trying to like make people happier. So I often will help my friends clear closets, and they would often say to me, I got rid of so many clothes and now I feel like I have so much more to wear.
Yeah.
It's a deep paradox. So I was trying to explore that in Outer Order, Inner Calm. Then I was like, but what about the senses? I like live in my head. Then I wrote a book, Life in Five Senses. I mean, so it's just happiness is such a giant subject, and it leads in so many different directions that I just have been exploring different avenues ever since. Next, I'm going to write about the empty nest, and I'm sure this is something that comes up a lot because a thing that many people say is, oh my gosh, now I've got to think about my house, my space. How does it change? Do I want to downsize? Do I want to upsize? What do I do with all this stuff? What do we keep? My kids say they don't want any of it, but later on, will they regret it? Should I keep keepsakes for them, even if they say they don't want them? Oh, my parents are downsizing or have gone. What do I do with their stuff? So yeah, that's there's a lot of I as I'm working on my book Project Empty Nest. I am seeing a lot of overlapping with order and clearing and organization and ownership.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, Gretchen, because what we see a lot in our profession is that people think we put stuff in a bin bag.
Yeah.
That's what, you're a declutter,
Right.
you're a professional organizer. Oh, you must love putting stuff in a bin bag. And we've been saying for 15 years, both Leslie and I, that's like the byproduct of what we do. It's all the other things that happen when you declutter, right? It's the more space, it's the more energy, it's the more time, it's the habit changes, it's making time for things that you love to do.
Yes.
It is because people come in and say, I want to declutter all these rooms in my house, and I want to, the spare bedroom is an absolute dumping ground. And oh my gosh. And we're like, okay, but you need to learn to step back first.
Yes.
And you need to build up your decluttering muscle. We talk about a decluttering muscle all the time.
Yes.
And you need to start in easier rooms. You need to practice with small changes. Make a habit of those. We talk about daily resets all the time.
Yeah.
You need to do daily things because you want to maintain the good work that you've done. And you need to build up to those harder, more difficult areas. And although people think that our job is we just put some stuff in bin bags and donate it, recycle it, trash it, whatever, we know it's so much more than that. It's so much more than that. And you're right. We see people who are changing careers, are finally able to downsize or upsize, are finally able to make that move across the country they've always wanted to do. They're able to consider working from home, whatever it is. All these big things that never seemed achievable when there was so much clutter around suddenly become possibilities. And that's so amazing, isn't it?
I wonder if it's from the clarity, because there's all this noise that's gone away. And so you sort of can see what's most important to you. And maybe it even just feels more possible because I do think people feel very weighed down, like literally weighed down. Do you often hear people using metaphors of lightness or like, I feel like I lost weight. I feel like a backpack fell off my back. Like they live. So it actually feels like, oh, I could make a move because I feel like I have more like power in my body almost physically. It's the connection between our surroundings, our insides and our outsides is just very, very profound. And I think people often dismiss it.
Yeah.
And also like the why it is very emotionally draining to do this, because sometimes you really do have to grapple with a big issue. It's not just about like, what are you going to do with this mixing bowl? It's like, what was your relationship to your mother?
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and you kind of have to grapple with that.
I think what I've loved about the way that you kind of explained your, your writing career, and the way that there's always a book, before you finish one book, the next
Yeah.
book is inside. It just shows that it's such a transitional journey where you kind of, it's all different
Yes.
layers, isn't it? It's so many different
Yes.
layers. And we
Yes.
talk as well about, decluttering in particular, then being a process, not a project, being a process, not a
Yes.
project. And it's the same thing to get to that happiness. You've got to go, oh, but it's about this and it's about that. And certainly, as Ingrid said before, people who think it's about putting stuff in a bin bag in the first instance, once you introduce that idea of emotions, just at a very basic level, the light bulb goes on then, and then you can start to build on it. And then you can start to think about your personality type, which we do that in our Reset Your Home book as well, and things like that. And so it's really interesting to see how your book career, your writing career then transition through, and you were like, oh, but there's this thing, oh, and there's that thing, and so interesting. So how many books have you got all together then, Gretchen?
11.
11.
11.
11.
But it's interesting. The Happiness Project was actually my fifth book.
Right.
And so like many people, I was like, I had been working for 10 years and then I became an overnight sensation.
Right.
A lot of people don't know. Like I wrote a biography of Winston Churchill, which I loved writing that book. And now like it's rarely spoken about, because it to me it fits very well, because it was a study in human nature, and Churchill's this towering figure, so you can kind of see everything because it's so amplified. So to me, all my books feel very connected, but but there's definitely the Happiness Project, and all the books after that are much more obviously about sort of how can we change, how can we know ourselves, happiness and human very explicitly. Yeah.
So fascinating. So I think what we're going to do now, Gretchen, is we're going to pop to a break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit more about your latest book, Secrets of Adulthood.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. We are chatting to the amazing person who is Gretchen Rubin, and we're so excited. And I'm absolutely buzzing. We had such a good conversation before the break. But now, Gretchen, we would love to know more about your latest book, Secrets of Adulthood. That sounds very serious.
Well, I was saying how all my books come out of, each book comes out of the last. And so with this book, several strands came together. And for people who haven't seen the book, it's a little book. It's a little book. It has like 200 aphorisms in it, Secrets of Adulthood. And I don't call them aphorisms because nobody knows what an aphorism is. An aphorism is a very short 1 or 2 sentence general observation about human nature that's attributed to a person. So Oscar Wilde said it, or Montaigne said it, which is different from something like a proverb, which is folk wisdom. This is just these sayings that we all have known for centuries. A stumble may prevent a fall. You can't push a rope. Things like that. Those are proverbs. So I've always loved aphorisms, but what I was trying to do with this, I have 2 young adult children, which is why I'm writing a book about the empty nest, and I wanted to make a collection for them of all the secrets of adulthood that I had learned with time and experience, often the hard way, to try to spare them some of the indecision and suffering that I had gone through. But I quickly realized I need this collection just as much for myself, because I have to keep reminding myself of every lesson that I've learned. Like over and over, I have to say to myself, working is one of the most dangerous forms of procrastination, or something that can be done at any time is often done at no time, or sharing of tasks often leads to shirking of tasks, things like this. And so I wanted to collect these, and I really did push myself to use the form of the aphorism. And in my books, I had over time really consciously embraced trying to, when I had a big idea, really did push myself to try to distill it into a line or two, because I just think, you can explain at great length and that can be very illuminating, but Often it's when it's sort of really crystallized into a very succinct statement. That's when it has more power in the mind. We can remember it better. And maybe we disagree. You might disagree, but you sort of even know your own mind better through disagreement. And it's easier when it's in this short form. And it's just very creatively satisfying because it is to write something very concisely is very challenging. So I found that to be a very creatively satisfying task. So all these things came together in Secrets of Adulthood.
Wow. And so, yeah, concise is not really our thing. We were so really happy when we got our 80,000 words for Reset Your Home because we like to talk, we like to speak, we like to write and all those kind of things. But yeah,
but that's sort of interesting, right? Because in you physically are about like calling down. So maybe in your writing, you like to sprawl a bit more.
Yeah, because I just think it's complex. This business that we're talking about here, seeking out happiness, the pursuit of less or the right things around you, whatever you want to call it. It's not a simple fix. It's something that needs to be explained. And it's something that can certainly be learned over time. But sometimes we need prompts if it doesn't come naturally to us.
Oh, 100%.
So many.
And I think the stories are so helpful as well. Like hearing other people's challenges and how they met it is often more instructive even than, sort of like some advice.
Definitely, definitely. So just jumping back to one of the books, which I guess relates most to decluttering then, I think, is Outer Order, Inner Calm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so what were the key themes within that? And what do you think's what are you most proud of and would like to get across as the key theme to the reader?
Well, yes. So this book, because I had noticed that for most people, not everybody, but for most people, outer order contributes to inner calm. And I was just very interested in like the disproportionate effect. And so that's what drew me to wanting to really focus on it in a little book. And again, this is a little book. This is like a little book. My aim with Outer Order, Inner Calm was that people would start reading it and then they would be so inspired to start clearing clutter that they would literally jump out of their seats and be like, I cannot wait a moment longer. I cannot turn another page. I must go to my medicine cabinet right this second, and so it's divided into things like creating order and like making decisions and creating beauty and like all these things. And it's really just full of suggestions about how to do it, different ways to think about it. Because what I find is often like different things resonate with different people. And so if you just sort of like if they just see a bunch of things, maybe only a few things will resonate, but those could be very powerful. For instance, one that a lot of people repeat back to me is, these people, the overbuyers. These are the people who are like, well, maybe I'll need it in the future. This thing can make a great gift, or I like it in one color. I could probably use three. They're overbuying. They'll buy everything they could possibly need for a trip instead of saying like, okay, wait, do I really need a pouch for my passport? Like, let's take a minute. And so one of the things I say is like, store it at the store. If you don't need it yet, store it. They will keep it there very nicely for you. You can just store it there and then you can go get it when you want it. And so many people who are overbuyers are like, somehow storing it at the store made me think like, I can just leave it there for now instead of feeling like I have to get it under my own roof. And so, the 1 minute rule, anything that we can do in less than a minute, we should do without delay. Many people have said this has like been transformative of their space because it just gets rid of that scum of clutter on the surface of everyday life. But I think the big themes are really like making decisions, like do I need it? Do I want it? Do I love it? Do I even know I own it? I just had this experience, right? And here I am, like writing about this for years. I finally go to some like top shelf in my pantry, and there is a absolutely enormous metal bowl. And I'm like, I have no idea where that came from. I have never seen that thing before in my life. And I'm like, what should I do with it? And I thought, this thing could be very useful. And then I said, could it be very useful? Because I literally have never once said, oh my goodness, I really wish I had a gigantic mixing bowl. I am not making giant quantities of punch. I am not making a salad for 40 people. I do not need this giant mixing bowl. I gave that thing away to a friend of mine who is like a massive cook with a big family. She was thrilled but I was like already fooling myself. Oh, maybe this thing will come in handy. That's the endowment effect, right? Because we own it. We're like, oh, this thing is good. And And so yeah, making decisions, creating order, like how do you create order in your space? How do you create beauty in your space? How do you have habits so that you can maintain? You mentioned like keeping it up. And I think that is a big challenge because I think people do see it as a project. Like I'll come in, I'll get everything cleaned up, and then we'll all go back to our old ways and be absolutely baffled why everything is just a mess again. Not understanding how you really have to constantly maintain it.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because we actually, I was talking to some of our members, and I was like, decluttering is like laundry; it never
Yes.
stops. Yeah,
Yes.
like people think that decluttering, I just declutter and then I'm done, and I'm like, I'm sorry,
Yes.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but
Yes.
decluttering is something you have to keep working on. As long as
Yes.
stuff comes in, stuff needs to leave. It
Yes.
becomes easier. The more you practice it, the more you
Yes.
do it,
Yes.
but you will have to. And if you indeed are the shopper that loves to take the freebies and loves to, when it goes on
Yes.
holiday, picks up all the souvenirs, and if you
Yeah.
love buying stuff for your friends all the time, and what we really see is a mindset change. I mean, we have a membership where we help people all over the world with their decluttering and organizing. And that mindset change, once the clutter goes down slowly but surely, their mindset changes about all these things that they just normally would always do, and they start to
Yeah.
look at themselves and go, why am I doing this? Why do I
Hmm.
need to buy an owl for my best friend because I know she loves owls, and why do I then feel I have to buy every owl I ever see in the shop that I come into for her?
Yes.
Why am I doing this? And I think when you
Yes.
start to think those thoughts, you're really on your way to change your mindset and to kind of go, okay. And we actually talked a little bit about it before we hit record. Decluttering and being having better habits and having more calm is not about having nothing in your house. It's not
No.
about minimalism, is it?
Yeah. No.
But it's having
No.
the stuff in your house that you love and use and appreciate. And
Well, it's interesting because I have this newsletter, the Five Things Making Me Happy newsletter, and I recently wrote in the newsletter about a distinction that I draw, which is abundance lovers and simplicity lovers. So simplicity lovers are people like me, where we like a lot of room on the counters, a lot of space on the shelves. We don't like a lot of buzz. We like one rosebud in one vase on a shelf, you know. But then there are abundance lovers, and they like profusion and choice and buzz and collections and lots of visual stimulation. And it's interesting because I'm a simplicity lover, but my daughter is an abundance lover. I mean, to the max. But the thing is, it's not clutter. Everything is exactly where she wants it. If I go in there and I take out one little China cat, she's like, "What happened to the China cat? It's supposed to be right here." Like for her, it's exactly the way she wants. She values everything. She's projecting her identity into her space. She's carefully chosen everything. There's nothing trashy. There's nothing broken. There's nothing forgotten. There's nothing that's just been dumped down on a surface because she can't be bothered to find a place for it. To my eye, it's overwhelming. I'm like,
yeah,
I couldn't live in a bedroom like this. I couldn't live in a dorm room like this. But for her, it feels right. I think she would find like the kind of dorm room that I would have kind of sterile and stripped. And as like the member of a family, I've really pushed myself. Like I want to create a rich, warm, inviting environment. And so even though my instinct is kind of like leave every shelf bare, leave every surface bare, it's like it's actually nice to have some picture frames on the mantelpiece or whatever, because it's not that one person is right and one person's wrong, or that simplicity is right or better or more aesthetic or more morally right. It's just about creating the environment that you want. And like what we're talking about is whatever that looks like in the end, get rid of everything that doesn't belong to your vision, because it's just gonna cloud, it's just gonna be noisy, however you want it to end up, whether that's some kind of super spare Scandinavian minimalism or some super, hyped up, super saturated environment.
Yeah,
yeah.
kind of maximalism, that came over the last
Maximalism.
couple of years. Yeah, it's
And they're
exactly.
both fine. And I think
Yeah.
people want to argue, I'm right, you're wrong. I'm sure you see this in couples where one person is like, oh my gosh, why do we have all these like bits and bobs like on every surface? And the person is like, but those are important to me. These are beautiful, whatever. It's like, no one's right and no one's wrong. It's just how do we create an environment where we both feel comfortable?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think, I think the important thing about today's conversation, and yes, we are a decluttering podcast, and you've spent your life's work talking about happiness, Gretchen, is that the two are so aligned. And if we could
Yes.
just, you can't really have one without the other, I don't think. And I think that, it's all about looking further when you're on a decluttering journey. So a lot of people who are here to hear our decluttering hints and tips, it's all about taking it one step further and thinking about, but why? And
Yes.
why this conversation has been so interesting today is because it's we want happiness, as you said right at the beginning of the podcast. You need to be happy, and your surroundings are so pivotal to that. And so
Hmm.
it's just understanding that, because we can become so entrenched in thinking clutter, clutter, stuff must go today. And it's not about that. It's about creating a life where you can be happy, where you can pursue your hobbies, where you can, I think
Hmm.
we said, move to the other side of the country, downsize if that's what you want to do, and you don't feel suffocated by your stuff. And so it's
And
much
all,
bigger than decluttering, right?
absolutely. And then I also think like one of the things is sometimes you feel like very guilty about your stuff, or it makes you feel bad when you see it. So for instance, like a half finished project, which like you've got it out on the dining room table and you're like, but I need to finish that project. I need to finish that project. So you feel guilty every time you see it. Or like you've got your guitar and your music and everything set up, kind of gathering dust, and it makes you feel guilty every time you see it. So recently in the Happier podcast, we had the try this at home suggestion to dust it off, because a friend of mine had this keyboard that was like just randomly in his living room, and he's like, but I really want to get back into playing. And I was like, well, play it or put it away. But the fact that you just have it in the middle of your living room where it doesn't belong, it's like it's not working. And so either use this as like, okay, this is reminding me of this is something that's a really important value. So how am I going to really make a habit of that? Which is actually what he chose to do, and he's really happy. Or say to yourself, this is not a season of life for me. When I'm going to do this, put it out of, central real estate. Or say, you know what? This was like a thing that I thought I would be into, but I'm really not. That was a fantasy self. This is
Yeah.
not myself. I'm going to give it away. And if down the road I decide I want to try it again, I can retry it, but I don't have to have, it's like me and all the origami paper. Like, I'm like, I'm not going to do origami. Face it. Like, give that paper away. It's beautiful paper. Many people love origami. That is not me. But the feeling that it can give you these bad feelings when you're confronted with like things that, or I remember a friend of mine saying how with her bedroom, she had piles, and this was a while ago when people had many more like physical photos, and she had piles and piles and piles of photographs that she had been meaning to make into photo albums. But that's a huge, I'm sure you talk to people about photos all the time.
Yeah.
It's like a huge source of pleasure, but also a huge source of like work. And I was just like, well, don't have them right by your bed on your nightstand. That's just like every time you look at them, you're like, oh God, those photo, or they just start fading into the background. And so you just have this like cluttered environment that's not even, this just, kind of getting in your way without you even really understanding why. And so, yeah, I mean, we're getting all kinds of cues from our environment. And then when I wrote Life in Five Senses, it's like, well, there are all these things like, do you have something in your house that's kind of smelly? Like every time you walk, you're like, ugh, kind of smells bad. Even like a cleaning product. I realized I hated the smell of our garbage bags. Like, why had I had them for 5 years? Like, that is just a product. I could just buy a different version. But I never thought about it. Or is there, a chair where you sit at and there's the lamp is just the wrong lamp, and you've just put up with it for 10 years instead of saying, this is the wrong lamp. Let me find another place for this lamp. Let me get the right lamp. And then my space is going to feel so much more comfortable to me. And I'll sit in that chair and read, which I haven't been really doing because the light isn't good.
It's incredible how aligned we talk about clutter blindness, about not
Yes.
when something stays in the same place, you stop seeing it.
Oh,
Um,
a thousand times.
yeah,
Yeah,
when the
that.
clutter comes down, you suddenly think, oh my goodness, I actually really should. There's lots of spider webs, and why there's lots of
Yeah.
handprints on the wall because of the
Yeah.
clutter, you can't see it.
Yes.
We are absolutely so aligned in everything that you've just mentioned as well. The piles of photographs, all these jobs that aren't finished, or the clothes
Yes.
in the wardrobe with the
Oh, that
tag
don't
still on that
fit.
you haven't worn, and they were so expensive, and you feel that guilt hanging everything. Oh, I still haven't worn it, but I spent so
Yeah.
much money on it, and then you
Yes.
perpetuate those negative
Oh,
feelings
or
all
the
the time.
clothes that don't fit, and you're
Yeah,
like, well, I haven't worn it in 10 years, but maybe one day I'll fit back into it.
yeah,
And then I've had and I'm always just like, look, if you fit it back into it, you're gonna want to have a different pair of jeans. Like
yeah.
that jacket is 10 years old. You're not gonna feel like wearing it again, no matter what. And so you're just like, it's out of fashion now. It doesn't matter that it fits or it doesn't fit. It's not something that you would wear in any circumstance. But yeah, they're all these messages that we're
Yeah.
exchanging with our surroundings constantly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the clutter indeed has such a negative impact, and when the clutter goes down, people do become happier, but they don't realize that
Yes.
when they read your books, read our book, listen to our podcasts, come into our membership, they don't realize that comes later. In the
Yes.
beginning, they're just trudging through the clutter,
Yes.
trying to figure it all out.
Well,
But
one of my secrets of adulthood is things often get messier before they get tidier, and I feel like this is figuratively true, but it's also literally true.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, now, do you find too, and I often tell people this is like it goes in layers. Like
yeah,
you clear out a thing of clutter, and then it's like go right back through, and you will see a whole different layer that the first time you're like,
Yeah.
you didn't even think, oh, I don't even need this. And then you're like, wait a minute. When I go through people's closets, it's like, okay, let's go through three times. And they'll be like, there's absolutely nothing else that I want to get rid of. And then they're like 10 more things because you kind of have to scrape away at the layers. It just accumulates. So like, especially if you have children, because they're moving through stages and possessions so fast, and everything can seem very precious. Or if they're things that are like from the past, where you're like, how can I get rid of this thing that's been in my family for 60 years, even though I don't even want it? How do I get rid of a photograph of somebody that I don't know? It means nothing to me, and yet it feels somehow sacrilegious to just like get rid of a photograph of somebody who, allegedly is in my family. It feels wrong, but what am I going to do with it? These are hard questions, but then once you figure it out, it feels so good.
yeah.
Exactly. So we find ourselves now. I'm sat here thinking about how many people are going to go out and buy in your 11 books, Gretchen, because the
Oh,
uptake is
good.
amazing.
Do it. Yes. Yes.
I'm just gonna ask them to kind of pop ours into their Amazon basket
Yes.
alongside your 11 as well.
Yes. That's
So
right.
that's really important to us as well. Because every single
Yeah.
book, I'm like, oh, that sounds great. That sounds great.
But
I
you
think
know what? I do think there is something like if you're facing a big clutter clearing thing, there is something like very energizing about reading about it. I think it's kind of a cheerleading. It gives you little ideas, little
yeah,
tips. You'll see yourself in a story. I do think if you're flagging, maybe you have a big project, like you've got to clean out like a big house because you're getting ready to sell it, or you're feeling like I put this off for a really long time because I don't want to deal with it, and now I really am going to try. I do think that there is something about reading along. It just like it just keeps you sort of engaged in the project of it, so that I find that people will often do it as kind of a it's like an energy booster. And I'm not do you all experience this? Like I'm not exactly sure why that is, but I think that reading about clutter clearing is actually really does help people stick to it. Have you seen
yeah.
that?
Yeah, definitely. And I think the way that we've written the book, so it's sort of we have like the thinking and doing of decluttering. So we go into the emotional piece at the beginning of each chapter and we go room by room, and then we do the doing at the end. And so there's a sort of step-by-step
Yeah,
process through the emotional side
exactly.
of it and the doing. And I think it means that can be broken down into small manageable chunks, which is really, really important. So yeah, definitely. And I think the learning is arguably the hardest bit of it, or the most,
Yes.
impactful part of it. And then once you get that nailed, you go in, with the armor of knowing a little bit more than you did before you got reading, and then you can make much more progress that time because you understand yourself a little bit better. So I think
Yeah.
that's why the reading, or listening to podcasts or any of those kind of things
Yeah.
are just so important.
And sometimes one idea can really unlock for you. Like for me, when I was getting rid of a lot of my children's things, like the idea that I could take a picture of something and hang on to it that way, was really, really powerful. Like we had this beautiful play kitchen. It's the best play kitchen I've ever seen. It was wooden. It was so nice, but it was big, and I was like, what am I going to do with this play kitchen? I live out in an apartment in New York City, and but I took pictures of it, and then I was like, that's all I need. I just need the memory of the play kitchen. I don't need
Mm.
the actual play kitchen. And what was so exciting about that is somebody that my husband worked with had like three little girls, and they had a summer house, and so they came and they picked it up. And my husband got a text the next morning, and we put in all the play food and the play spatulas and all this stuff. So they got all of it. And she said, I feel like I've been depriving my children their whole lives. They got up at 5 a.m. All three girls are playing play kitchen for like all day long. And I was like, it was so lovely to me. And I still, as you can hear, I get so much pleasure from thinking about that the play kitchen went on and was played with by these other children who got so much pleasure from it. We still have the photograph. I have every memory of like picking it out with my mother and how my husband was so mad at me when he found out that he was going to have to like put it together and, you know, and all the fun that we had with it. But the photograph was all that I needed. And that is so freeing. But I think for a lot of people, that's a revelation. They're like, oh, I could just take pictures of my children's favorite outfits, or I could just take pictures of this like giant clay sculpture. It's like, yeah, you don't have to keep the thing. Sometimes you want to, but sometimes you don't.
When we walk into a playroom or a bedroom, when we're working as professional organizers, and there's like play kitchen and a tool bench and something else, and we're like, where's it all going to, like, as those things,
the giant slide,
like big, you know what I mean? They're like,
yeah, big.
Okay, we thought about maybe that we could let anything go because there's like a lot of stuff, but yeah. So when you finally let go of the play kitchen, it's quite a big space saver. So yeah,
it is. We had a giant plastic slide in our kind of family space for a long time, and it just felt like we got a whole new room in our apartment when we got rid of it.
Exactly. So on that note, we can end. Play kitchen can go, guys.
Yes,
Gretchen Rubin says so. It's all good.
I've been there. I felt the twangs in my heart, but there is that. But you'll get so much space left, and then you'll just have more room for like what's happening in your life now. You know, that's the important thing, is that you're making space for the future.
Oh, Ingrid's going to be sad now to say goodbye.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like,
oh, well, this was so much fun. I enjoyed this conversation.
I'm stalling.
We could talk all day. This is such an energizing subject. I love it.
Exactly.
It's been an absolute pleasure and honor. So thank you so much for this inspiring chat. Absolutely, your insights and everything you have mentioned resonates so much with what we do here in the Declutter Hub. And it's been such a pleasure to have you here as a guest in Ingrid and Lesley Go Global Week.
Yes.
And, we'll definitely put the links to especially the Happiness Project and The Secrets of Adulthood, your newest book, into the show notes. And of course, listeners, don't forget to check out our book as well, which came out officially yesterday in the US and Canada. So go to declutterhub.com/book for all the details, or as always, check the show notes. So thank you, Gretchen, for your time.
Oh, thank you. I so enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks so much for listening to the Declutter Hub podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to us in your podcast player so you don't miss an episode, and we'll see you next week.